I have my interview right now with Michael Santiago. He is a staff journalist with Getty Images. Michael, you are a Pulitzer Prize-winning photojournalist. You've also are a Edward R. Murrow Award-winning cinematographer for a project you did as well. So you've been around a bit when it comes to the news world. I'll dive right into it. So when you were there yesterday, when the former president was arriving to court for arraignment, I mean, can you just tell me what was going through in your head in that moment when you're trying to take the perfect shot?
Yeah, I mean, what was going through that moment? I would say first that, I've been in that courtroom hallway countless of times for the past year, and for the most part, everybody who's there, we all know each other. We're always talking. We're always joking out loud. The court officers are always talking. So when the district attorney Alvin Bragg walked in, we knew that it was happening. And then once Trump's lawyers walked in, right then we were all prepared for it to happen, and it was like a sound vacuum hit that hallway. It just got completely dead silent, and then I just wanted to tunnel vision, expecting for this to happen. And I triple checked my settings to make sure I was getting everything correct, and I had my camera to my eye pointing towards where to the door where he was walking out of, and I would just prepare for him to walk out. And as soon as that door opened up, I just hit my shutter and just kept it pressed.
Just the moment of anticipation, waiting for the very
Yeah.
thing that you had been there for, at least from the outside. And I wonder, when you were in that moment, I mean, can you just paint to me a picture of the atmosphere of what it was like before he showed up and then when he actually showed up?
Yeah, I mean, prior to him showing up, all the reporters who and photographers and video folks who were outside waiting were let in. For the most part, the photographers and video folks that we got in first, and everybody set up and prepared. And then after that, for the next like 10 to 15 minutes, it was just reporters going through and showing that they had the passes to get into the courtroom over and over again. And at that point, still he hadn't gotten there yet. So it was still like, all right, is this really going to happen? And it was just like, I don't want to say excitement, but there was a lot of commotion going in and out. Secret Service, just making sure that everybody was supposed to be there. The courtroom officers making sure that everything, everybody was where they were supposed to be. And it was just a lot of commotion, people going back and forth.
I mean, understandably so. This is a historic moment, and it's clearly something that a lot of people, so many people, millions of Americans are interested in. With the event as it unfolded yesterday, I'm curious, how did you manage to get into what I would argue is one of the more advantageous spots to take that photo? There's the one photo where it's very clear. He's looking almost directly in your camera lens, it looks like, and you can see some of his people that are on either side of him.
Yeah. Well, so what's not seen is that I'm literally about in the fourth row of people who were there. By the time I got there, and got to security and got there, everybody for the most part was set up. There were people in the front, people on ladders, people on stools, and I was about maybe like the fourth row. And prior to him getting there, we're in a secured pen, and I asked the court officer, "Am I allowed to lean over?" And they were like, "Yeah, you can lean over as long as you stay where you are and don't move the barricade." So the entire time prior to that, I was practicing leaning over and making sure I can position myself in a sense or in a way where I can get a dead center photograph of what I'm looking at, and that's pretty much what happened. And I've had a few people comment that he's looking directly at you. In a sense, yes, but he's looking directly at everybody who was there. And where I was positioned and how I was able to photograph it, it looks like he's looking directly at me, like as if I was the only person there. And for the most part, it kind of felt like that because I wanted to tunnel vision. Like I completely everything around me at that moment just kind of like disappeared, and it was just me making sure that I got exactly what I needed, and I just focused on him. And so, in a sense, it was kind of like we both locked onto each other.
Okay, so that's interesting. Yeah, I guess he's looking at everyone, so I guess it would look like he's looking at your lens too. Um, you mentioned a little bit how you triple checked your settings and stuff. Again, you are a veteran of the news process. I know that you know the process of making sure you got your SD cards, whatever you need. I wonder if this one specific event, did you do anything extra because of the magnitude, the weight of this particular story?
Um, I mean, I just triple checked everything, triple checked my settings, making sure I had the correct ISO, which lets the camera see how dark it is in there. I took several test photos. I was also live filing at the time, so I was sending photos to make sure that the photo will go through. Um, and ultimately, I actually ended up having to send photos to my laptop because I guess that everybody was trying to send photos at the same exact time. It kind of just bogged the internet down, so slowed down. But I mean, I just took more test photos than I usually do, and I positioned myself like leaning up, leaning a little bit forward. I could kind of tried several different angles to see which way I prefer to photograph it. And ultimately, what I ended up doing towards the end was just pretty much kind of lifting myself up and leaned over more to the outside of the barricade, about like 3 inches, and that's kind of like the photograph that I got.
Two more questions for you. To my understanding, Getty Images doesn't really do interviews like this, but they were gracious enough to allow us to talk right now, and you agreed to talk to me. Why did you agree to talk to me?
Just because of the historical significance of what the photograph and the event. Um, a lot of times people don't, you know, they don't know what the behind the scenes is of the work that we do sometimes to get the photograph out that the people can see. And also a lot of times people don't understand like the work the journalists put into making sure that we get the most accurate information out there. And I think as a photographer, I think it's important.
And before I forget, I know we focused on the one photo. You had another photo. I tried to bring it up on Zoom. It's not agreeing with me right now. It's the
Mhm.
one where the former president's walking outside. You kind of see the goldish color. Where is that in that moment? And how are you in place for that one?
That was at Trump Tower, and we were across the street from Trump Tower, and I mean that moment was completely different than the moment in the courtroom. In the courtroom, it was silence before he got there. On the street, all we knew he got there because of the helicopters that were following him the entire time. So it was like a really big contrast where one obviously it's louder because we're outside, and the inside photo is just completely quiet, and it was just two completely opposite contrasting locations and things that were happening, but in a sense the moment still felt the same. And that photo outside, it still looks like he's looking directly at me and making direct eye contact with me, and I think that gives kind of almost the same exact feeling, just in different times and locations.
So the inside photo, that's the one where, he's walking to the courtroom. It's a little quieter than the outside. Outside Trump Tower, I did see there were people, protester supporters and different ones. I assume it was a little more boisterous outside with some people that were there.
Yeah, but we were the protesters that were there to I wouldn't call them protesters. They were there in support of President Trump, former President Trump, and they were across the street from where we were at. And they didn't see him, but they like we did. They heard the helicopters coming, and that's how they knew that we were there.
Okay. And then lastly, is there anything else that you wanted to say about this event that I wouldn't know because I physically wasn't there, or maybe something of interest that you think our viewers might be interested to know?
I mean, I would say that the overall um last couple of days, it was a team effort. We understood the significance of the event, and we made sure that we had every aspect of what was happening covered. So I wasn't there by myself, and also at the same time, I was photographing alongside some of like some great photographers who work here in New York. And they all had the opportunity to have the same experience that I had and capture history in the same exact way. But I mean that in a sense also kind of like amped my game up because I'm working with people whose work I've always seen, and now I'm sitting next to them capturing history. It was pretty significant.
And again, that's why I wanted to talk to you. There are only five, I think, still photographers allowed inside the courtroom. I believe one of your colleagues was in there as well. And obviously, we're here in North Carolina, so you had a vantage point that many people just won't have. And I'm glad that you agreed to do this interview with me.
Yeah, well, there were five photographers who were allowed inside the courtroom. Outside in the hallway, there was I don't know exactly the amount of photographers that were out there, but there was a good handful of photographers that were out there. But there was 5 who were allowed inside the courtroom, and then another group who were allowed outside in the hallways.
And he captured history as it unfolded. Michael Santiago, staff journalist with Getty Images, a Pulitzer Prize winning photojournalist. Thank you so much for taking time to me today.
Thank you for having me.